Hello, everybody. I have a guest on my channel and my stream, Clyde. Happy iOS Tuesday. So today we're gonna chat about iOS development. We gonna take your questions. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, like feel free to chat with us. It's very informal. So like if like either you have a thought or a question, feel free to ask us and participate in the discussion with us as well. So, Clyde, why don't you start? I'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. So thanks for the intro, Eugene. So my name is Clyde Freeman, and obviously I'm an iOS engineer. But I come from a definitely a non-traditional background. I started actually in finance, actually. So I spent about 7 years in finance, working from, doing a lot of FP&A work for various banks and real estate companies. So what really kind of got me into iOS was actually finance because I was in Excel spreadsheets day in and day out. Obviously working with pivot tables and working with all sorts of type of advanced functionality, advanced functions. And then what really kicked me off into kind of thinking that I wanted to do coding full time was I actually started getting into Excel's in-house coding language called the VBA, which is Visual Basic for Applications. So that was essentially my first programming language I ever kind of dived into. So from there, I got the coding bug, and I was like, I kind of like the technical piece more so than the actual financial piece at my job. So then from there, I actually went to two coding boot camps, and then landed my first job at Wayfair doing iOS, and that's the origin story right there. And then been doing iOS ever since. So about 2.5 years now.
Nice. You said Wayfair. I think I've seen that company on like other people's resume. What do they do?
It's an e-commerce site. Essentially, they sell furniture. Um,
Oh, okay.
so you probably heard of them before. They're purple. The logo's like purple and like yellow.
Yeah. I heard of
Yeah.
them. Nice. And it's so interesting that you went to a couple of coding boot camps. Why two coding boot camps? Why was it enough at one?
So the first coding boot camp is the one that I had went to during my actually initial job as a financial analyst. I went there mainly because it just worked better for my schedule. It was actually a coding boot camp that actually tailored itself to working professionals and underserved communities. It's called actually codesquad.org. So you can look that up if you guys want to check that out. It's based in Boston. I'm from Boston, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so I went there and it just worked for my schedule, so I can go there after work. It was staying from 4 days a week. After work, it fit my schedule, and it just made more sense. And it was the key word; it was free too. So I really loved that part. That it was free and it was after work hours. Where some boot camps, they want you to go full time, so you have to quit your job. So this just made sense. And this was actually the first iteration. So I was part of the first cohort of the boot camp. So it was fairly new. They were still kind of like getting the curriculum and their standard set. So I was like part of the guinea pigs we call ourselves. So I went there, but I didn't feel like I had the skills essentially to get a job. And we can talk about that possibly later. I didn't feel as prepared as I should have coming out of that boot camp. So I kept on working obviously because I couldn't get a job. And then I came upon this opportunity with this other program called Apprenti.
Mm.
Now Apprenti is a national program that I highly suggest anyone willing to get into tech definitely check in. I think it's actually the catalyst to my career. So what Apprenti is, it's a job provider actually. It helps you. So what it did for me is I got selected. I went through the whole interview process. And the beautiful thing about it is they don't really care about your technical background. They actually don't even ask about a technical background. You just got to come in with the ability to want to learn and be enthusiastic about tech. So I passed the interview, and then what the process is of the program. They actually match you up with a company before they train you on anything. So what I did is I interviewed with a bunch of companies. So Wayfair was one of the companies I interviewed for. Wayfair liked me, so they was like, okay, we'll take Clyde. So when I went to the boot camp they put me through, and the boot camp is called Launch Academy. That's a great boot camp. They put me through Launch Academy, but the whole time I was in Launch Academy, I already knew that when I graduated or I finished the program, that I had a job waiting for me at Wayfair. And Wayfair worked with the boot camp to actually coordinate the curriculum so that when I came out, that I would be like kind of like already familiar with their kind of tech stack. So that was program was beautiful. And they offered me a stipend while I was in the boot camp. So definitely, guys, if you want to check that out, Apprenti, and it's not only for engineers as well. They have a bunch of careers like business analyst, cybersecurity, obviously engineering, and I think they have maybe project management maybe, but they have a bunch. Check out the website for sure.
Nice, nice, nice. I really like it a lot, and I see like a lot of people joining us in the chat. Anthony, James, and Swiftly, Tindeling Planet. So hey y'all, yeah. Like if you have any questions or like any thoughts, like please like chat with us. So it's like very friendly, very informal conversation. And one thing I wanna kind of iterate on that I think it's exactly what the industry needs, like kind of match up with the company and like pretty much train you like on the job. And like one of the like challenges is that when you finish your boot camp, um, you need like some sort of references. And like I sort of know how some of the like boot camps work. They like provide you references. They like you work on certain projects, and they say, hey, like this person work on that project and knows that like knows that kind of stuff. So, but like I really like the idea that they match you with a company, and the company kind of helps you to grow. And it's easier to learn on the job. For example, like I learned iOS development on the job. I started as a QA engineer, and
Mhm.
I just joined like iOS team. And with like I didn't know anything about mobile development when I joined them. I just knew a lot of like tools how to automate stuff. So I knew how to automate mobile stuff like in few different ways. And but when I started working there, like yeah, like they shape you up in what exactly they want. So there's a question. Talk about boot camps and first jobs. So what was your first job as an iOS developer?
So that was my first job. So the Wayfair was my first
Oh,
job as an
wafer was
iOS.
you.
Wayfair is my first job. So let me tell you a little bit background before I get to iOS. So I actually started out as a web developer at
Oh,
Wayfair, right? So I started as a
interesting.
web developer, and we have like these town halls where all the engineering pods, we call them pods in Wayfair, they pretty much demoed what they was working on. And I remember seeing the iOS team or the mobile team demo some of their VR tech for like visualizing how an item of furniture will look in your house. So you have to scan your room, and then you'll pick the furniture item, and then you can kind of visualize it in VR how that item will look in your space. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, yeah, I need to get to iOS. Plus, I had iPhone.
Hmm.
I'm iPhone. I'm Apple groupie, so I was like, let me try to switch over because I really wasn't feeling that I was working in PHP. That's another thing too. So I was like, let me switch over. So I reached out to my the coordinator because this is another thing about Wayfair. Wayfair has their extra internal process called Wayfair Labs.
Hmm.
So before you even get to a team, you go through Wayfair Lab, which is another 2 months of project work. So you have two projects: a front end project and a back end project. So not only did I have to go through the boot camp before I got to Wayfair Labs, but I also had to go through Wayfair Labs. So what happened was I did that. They transferred me over to the mobile section of Wayfair Labs, and instead of doing another 2 months, I just did 1 month. So I had to build a project, a basic CRUD application for movies, right, and consuming the API where it was actually the movie database. So I had to bring down movies. You can search the movies by title, genre, be able to search, delete, and add. So I did that project. They give you a month to do it. They don't really care how you get it done. You have a month to do it. So it was really flexible. We had mentors on hand, so we have about 2 or 3 mentors that you can ask for help. And that was actually a beautiful thing that I realized, the mentorship that I got. I remember his name like it's yesterday, Michael. Right, he was a
Mhm.
food scientist before he was an iOS developer. I'm like, huh? He was a food scientist, and he was one of the best iOS developers to this day that I know. He knew his stuff like the back of his hand. So he really helped me. He met with me every day. If I had any questions, I knew that at the end of the day and at the beginning of the next day, I could always go to him with any questions. And he definitely was a catalyst for me as far as my learning, because he allowed me to make mistakes. He didn't spoon feed me anything. He actually he's one of those mentors who's like, hey, he wanted you to get to it yourself. And I
Mhm.
really think at first I was like, come on, man, just give me the answer. But now it really helped me as far as my thinking and approaching stuff, right? So he's basically like my rubber ducky, right? I would say some stuff and try to explain the problem to him. And then in the midst of doing that, I would kind of stumble upon the answer, which was cool.
Nice. And how are you liking AR? Or are you working
Uh
with a lot with AR right now, or you worked with AR a lot?
Actually, I haven't. That's what got me into it. But I have not touched AR since I got in this space, right? So the team that I got placed on when I first got into Wayfair, as far as like doing iOS development, was the finance and loyalty team. And
Hmm.
I honestly think they placed me there because of my finance background. I was doing financial analysis for about 7 years at that point. So I was like, he knows tech. And he's a financial analyst. Let's put him on the finance and loyalty team. Mind you, that was probably one of the most high transparency teams at the company, because obviously that's a money maker. So the finance and loyalty is a checkout, is anything past checkout. So we can get to the checkout screen, credit cards, rewards, gift cards. So my team was responsible for all of that. And you can imagine, a new developer, Greens, right out of Wayfair Labs, barely knowing to do anything on that team, high visibility, right? So it was definitely trial by fire, and especially since the project I built, I thought I was hot shit at the project. Honestly, I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I built this project. It looks good. You can like things. I added animations. I worked with table views, collections. I'm like, okay. I had a little sign in, search bars. I'm like, I thought I was good, but I built everything using storyboards, and the teams, they don't use storyboards.
Oh.
So everything was programmatic. So I thought that was like really crazy, because I'm like, why would you have me build this project and then say, okay, we don't do that, we do everything programmatically? So I had another learning curve actually when I was on the team, so that was crazy as well.
I think like for me, it's the other way around. I learned how to do iOS development building UI and code, and I think it's like intuitive. It's like for me at least. Um, and then I used to live in Seattle at a time, and every team that I work with, like granted, my teams were fairly flexible, so they were okay with me building my UI and code, but I would say I was a part of like a few rather heated discussions, like whether or not we should use storyboards.
Mhm.
Um, and I like, and I don't know, like another thing about storyboards versus like doing everything in code, I think it's like geographical thing, kinda, because like in Seattle, and again, like I'm generalizing.
Okay.
In Seattle, like a lot of companies, they do like storyboard, they do like everything in storyboard, but if you go to San Francisco and California and LA kind of area, almost every company that I interview from California, they absolutely hated storyboards. They're like, you know what? If you want to use storyboards, you can, but we don't use them.
They
So
don't they
you
don't
gotta,
encourage it.
they do not encourage that. So that's funny that you learn, and it's a lot of people have similar experiences. They learn how to do storyboards because, like, I think if I didn't have any coding background before iOS, I would probably do storyboards because, I mean, like that's kind of makes sense. You put
It's
your
plug and play.
elements, yeah,
Mhm.
plug and play. But like I think when you come into like iOS development with the like programming like background, like well, like I it can be a little, and like granted, like storyboards for iOS, they're not most user friendly. Again, personal opinion, very subjective. Like I don't, for me, they're not as user friendly. Like I think it's easy to implement like simple stuff, but if you want to implement, for example, a complex scroll view, and put a stack view in your scroll view in a storyboard, it's a headache.
Okay, that I'll agree with you because I've had that exact issue when I was building this thing. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why can't I build a scroll view in this? But in programmatically, it's simple, right? So that I'll give you. But I think that once, like, it depends, right? So yeah, I think if you code already and you're used to code, then I think you gravitate more so to code because you're just used to it. You're used to having that type of control. I feel like you have more control. But if you have no coding background, then yeah, I agree. Like storyboards is kind of like the entry, the gateway to you getting into iOS easier, right? But I will say, even with storyboards, I think it is still difficult because the constraints are super duper hard, right? You won't know if you get the restraints all correct, right? Especially when you're stacking different types of views and you're nesting views on top of each other. That's when it gets really complex on storyboards.
Yeah, yeah, like, and I see like people engaging like with each other, like, and I absolutely love it. And this is like kind of what we do here at I like iOS Tuesday.
You love
So
to see
like,
it.
yeah, Anthony asked like, what resources help you to learn iOS development?
For sure. So obviously, I took a my first course that they suggested at Wayfair Labs was Ray Wonderlick.
Hmm.
So I took a couple of Ray Wonderlick courses. So that was probably like my first introduction, or no, I actually lied. That's my second introduction, right? So I want to go with Angela Yu on Udemy. That was the first introduction to that's the main resource I use. So I actually went through that you know, from the jump. Then I would say, obviously, I'll be it's blasphemous if I don't say his name. I think you guys know what I'm going to say. Paul Hudson, right? I hacking with Swift. I had to so I use that as well. 100 days hacking with Swift as well. So I did both actually, Swift and Swift UI. But yeah, those probably would be the three that I use. Obviously, there's other ones, YouTubers like I follow, like Sean Allen. I watch some of his stuff. But as far as like going through tutorials, Angela Yu, Paul Hudson, and Ray Winterlook courses for the most part.
Angela is the greatest of all time. Take Udemy course too. You know what? I feel so ashamed right now. I don't know who she is.
Oh, you don't?
I don't know who she is.
Oh, blasphemous! Yeah, she is. I think I agree, Jane. She's the goat. She for sure she's the goat. I like the way that she breaks down the topics, simple, and her voice is just so soothing. So it helps you. It makes you want to learn it. It's easy. She makes her jokes like it. I liked it. Like I actually think she's one of the best to go for, especially for beginners for sure.
My learning for iOS development was a little like hectic. So there was a platform like Treehouse. It's a like coding platform. You can pick any like platform. You can pick web development, you can pick iOS, Android. I think they had Android. I'm not sure.
I think
And
so too. Yeah, maybe.
yeah, and like this is actually how I started learning programming, because at the time I was a QA engineer, and I was working with web-based applications. And my approach, um, when I was doing QA, like, well, in order to be a good QA, I need to know how stuff is being built, how it's being made. So I took web development course, and like I didn't like it, but when I joined, because like there's so like think about it, like with iOS, like all you need to do like have like very super expensive MacBook and like Xcode, and you just click run and you have your empty application. Or like you can put something on the storyboard and like you will see it, so it's fairly like you get the result right away and fairly
Yeah,
easy. Like with web
instant
development,
feedback. Yeah.
yeah. So for web development, I think I got lost into configurations, and like you have to install this and that and that, and like I like, okay, like this is a little bit too much. But when I joined my first iOS team, like I was like my goal was to learn testing. So I was like introduction to Swift. Like I took introduction to Swift, like just kind of basics. I like, well, like I knew Python before and
Mhm.
JavaScript. I'm like, well, it's kind of similar and like the same concept. Like, okay, whatever. So I breezed through the like fundamentals, and then like, okay, let's jump into unit testing because they don't have UI testing, and like just see how to do unit testing. So I skipped the whole like building the UI, table view, collection view,
Mhm.
like all that stuff. I'm like, okay, unit testing, that makes sense. And eventually, like when I started working on the project, I realized like, okay, nobody at a time, nobody really made a video or resources for UI testing. And like, okay, I have my YouTube channel, and like let me just teach people how to do UI testing. And like it's those are old videos, but like I posted a video how to essentially hack other mobile applications, how to like control another mobile application if you know the bundle identifier for the application. So you can use XUI test and manipulate the application. So I posted a video with Tumblr. So like Tumblr was a thing like back then. I
Oh yeah, Tumblr. Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot about that.
I did a I did it. Well, what is that like dice dice is a website or platform for job search. They have a mobile app, so it was
Yep.
actually really really easy to like automate things. Um i I did the first round to register profile on Facebook, but then Facebook has really good security, and they're like, you do something shady, so we're gonna just like kick you out. And the same with Airbnb. I was trying to like create account with Airbnb. What the thing with automation stuff, like you have to do it over and over and over again. So like after like 5 times I was trying to create the same account, Airbnb like, we're gonna
You,
just block you. Like
yeah, it's like you're spamming them. That's what. Yeah, yeah. We actually have that issue too with one of our my company's email servers. We was creating like test accounts, and our the server that we used did not like that at all. So it was bouncing our emails back to us.
yeah, like Michaela said, like she likes code with Chris too. I think Chris, like, he's definitely on YouTube, and I think he doesn't get a lot of love, and his tutorials are like they're super approachable, especially for new people, and like his whole demeanor, like, hey, like you don't know how to do this, it's okay, so let's do it really in a really really simple way, and this is how you do it. So I think like I like his presentation method. I just like watch his YouTube channel like for fun.
I had code of Chris. I don't think I've heard of him before. Let me check him out.
Chris lives in Canada, so like he has his own little platform. um he has his own platform, and he focuses mostly on like newbies, so like people who don't know how to do like iOS like development, and he just teaches them. Michaela said, "Oh, it's an interesting job." I think Michaela, talks about me jumping to unit tests. And I
Oh,
think it's interesting because for new developers, like unit testing and like testing in general is a super hard and super complicated topic. Like, how do you test your code? How do you test the logic, and how do you manipulate the the UI? So, and for me, because of my background, like, well, I know how the internet works. So, and I just need to know like the specific tool. And another thing about test automation engineers or software developer in test, like they focus on tools versus the process. I just need to know the tool, and I will figure out the process later, because the nature of the job is just like you never work on the same with the same you may not work with the same platform for a long time. So you may, like, this year you work with the web, next year you work with API, or like the same company can actually task you to work with like different aspects of applications. So you have to learn really fast and like stand up automation systems like really really fast. They're kind of similar to DevOps in that instance. So they know a lot of cool automation tricks, but they don't know the platform, like what they're working with really well. Because again, like they don't have time to learn that, because by the time they master iOS, they need to do automate like API, for example, or like do performance and things like that. That's probably
yeah.
one of the reasons why I decided to quit, because like, you know what, I know iOS pretty well right now, and I don't want to jump on another web development or API development or backend development or anything like that. So
So you just
that's
want to focus on iOS then, right?
yeah, yeah. So tell me tell me about your career development. How's been going, and like what kind of challenges have you faced or facing or faced before, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So with me, um, me not coming from a CS background. Obviously, I have kind of like the common, trials and tribulations that people from non-traditional CS backgrounds have. Imposter syndrome. You feel like, hey, you're kind of behind the eight ball because you didn't go to school for it, and you feel like maybe some of your peers know more because they did. So some of those are like my challenges that I have. That's strictly 100% mental. It's 100% mental. But I would say, as far as like my development and like kind of getting past that, what I do is essentially, shake it off, because I know it's 100% mental, and I know that I know plenty of people, my peers who like again, my mentor was a food scientist, so he was
Mhm.
playing with food before he became a developer. He's one of the best developers. So I just kind of like run through those stories in my head and just kind of like reaffirm to myself that that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? That this is the industry where you know, doesn't matter your background. So I can, I run that in my head. I get over it. I only deal with imposter syndrome for like a couple of minutes at a time. Then it goes away. But as far as like me developing and like getting better at the craft and is doing what I'm doing now, essentially, trying to, surround myself with like-minded individuals, like for example, yourself, Eugene, like we met on Twitter. Like, this is my first time actually talking to you like voice. We met off Twitter. Like, I don't know, do you mean do iOS happy hour? Or, I forget which one it was. Um, I forget, right? But we met on Twitter.
Yeah, we met on Twitter. We met on Twitter.
But I know I was part of Iowa's happy hour too. I know you're part of that as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I went there a couple of times. I haven't been lately, but in the beginning when I first moved, I was. But just surrounding yourself with people, hearing seeing your tweets, seeing other engineers' tweets, learning from them via Twitter. That's definitely, I think Twitter is definitely a you know you know push me leagues and bounds as far as like my development, because you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes I see people writing stuff on or tweeting about stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was even a thing. So then from
Hmm.
there, I'll go in and research it. And then obviously, this is my job. Honestly, my development is my job. I'm tasked with learning different things. Right now, my job right now at my current job is to work on internal tools, and I actually work on Mac OS and tvOS.
Oh, nice.
So I don't even like technically do iOS. I here and there if they need some help with my other teammates, but my I actually own the tvOS part and the Mac OS part of the application. So learning
Nice.
that, switching over, I never want to do tvOS. I kind of still don't, but I like iOS better. But like just having to expand and which is good because we're doing it all in Swift UI, so it's directly transferable, which is good. So you can use Swift UI on both the Mac OS and tvOS. So it's kind of like I'm not on tvOS, but I'm not really building anything like in, for example, tvOS. You can build it in TVML, which is like
Yeah.
basically almost like and then Mac OS has you can use Catalyst, but I don't even use Catalyst. I use Swift UI.
Mhm.
So it's good, just learning that, keeping up, pacing myself. I pace myself for a lot of things because there's still a bunch of stuff I don't know, and it's okay. Just realizing it's okay. Like for example, I don't know anything about core data. I haven't used it. I haven't used it. I always use like Firebase or something else. I'd never use core data. So things like that. I'm like, should I learn core data? Then I'm like, I think I got other important things to learn, right? So like that's like a gap that I had that I'm kind of sort of self-conscious about, but not. It just depends on what you're working on, honestly.
I think with core data, like it's my yearly ritual. So Brian Woon has a course for with core data. So every year I pick up his course. I skip the UI part. I was like, well, I know how to build UI, and then like I learn a little bit about core data, and also like I will go and look at my previous code with Paul Hudson. He has a hacking with Swift Plus, and he
Mm,
has like an app portfolio app, and he's utilizing core data a lot. And like what he does, like he makes it so easy to understand. Like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. It's just like Firebase, even simpler. So but like after that, like obviously I have to work on features. Like as of right now I'm working for Nordstrom, and like we don't use core data. And
mm,
when you have like active development with a very complex application and with very complex like architecture, like you forget core data because you need to learn like those like quirks at work. And like you said, like your example,
yeah,
tvOS and Mac OS. It's the whole like. Granted, what I like about I like Apple platforms that you can utilize the same principles like for tvOS, for Mac OS, because
cross-platform, watch
yeah,
OS, all of it.
WatchOS, because like table view is a table view no matter which platform you use it. Like it will behave a little differently, but like it's like a view controller is a view controller, and like the constraints, their constraints. It's just like tvOS has like extra margins that you have to be mindful about. Like
Yeah,
WatchOS like has no little as no space, stuff like that. But like it's not like you have to learn different paradigm, and like you
nope.
operate the same tools, the same objects. It just has a little different quirks and like behaviors, stuff like that.
And that's the beauty of it too, and that's the versatility of it as well. Of being an iOS engineer, you got those platforms. You got 4 platforms, so tvOS, Mac OS, obviously iOS, and you got the Watch OS now. And whoever knows with this new VR system, it might be another OS system that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
That's easy.
And James said like core data is easy to pick up when you need it, not like really useful if you're using RESTful API and Firebase. I agree. Like I
Mm,
work at T-Mobile, and we did utilize core data a lot. And one quirk about core data that I learned, that you can create like the right name, like the right term is escaping me, but essentially you can create like a group of apps, and you can
mm,
share like core data. Like core data is essentially database, so you can
yeah.
share the same database between different applications, and you can also share like a database between different like app extensions too.
Mm.
So like that was super interesting how like you can expand one SDK or like one app and create a bunch of app extensions and utilize the same core data, especially when you need to like implement two modules for two different, like visibly different applications, but like they're interconnected on the background. I mean, I guess you can do it with the iCloud too, like because like if you
Yeah, you
connect it
can.
with the
Yeah,
same account,
and
yeah.
Firebase too. You can do it in Firebase too. So this is my thing too with core data, and this is kind of what actually has made me hesitant to learn it, especially in this world of cloud that we live in now. Right, everything's going to the cloud now. So with the big three. So now I'm like, is it even worth learning core data at this point for any new engineer coming in? Where most likely at a job, the company is going to be either using Azure, GCP, which I'm a
Hmm.
fan of, or AWS. Like and especially for mobile, you have Amplify, AWS, and you have Firebase with Google with GCP. So is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you need anything small for saving data, you use a default, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
that's my whole thing.
yeah, like yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned Swift UI, and apparently it's not apparently it is a hot topic for last 2 years. How do you like Swift UI versus
Oh,
UI Kit or
it's
App
a
Kit?
hot topic. I don't want to get into a fight with anyone over here. Like I think ah I see this debate all the time on Twitter, right? Is Swift UI ready, to take over right now? Is essentially the question. Ah, the short answer, no, it's not. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying this as a fan or big fan of Swift UI. It's not ready. And it's not ready just because you don't have as much control. It's not as mature as UI Kit, so it doesn't have that granular control that you're able to do with UI Kit. There's certain things that are too cookie cutter right now
Mm-hmm.
in Swift UI, right? So you're not able. You can easily pull up like a collection view, quick, easy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's cookie cutter. You can't really modify it to your to make it super duper unique right now because you don't have the tools and the options to do that. Some things, but that's the con right now. You get a lot of stuff out the box with Swift UI. Like I can set up a whole UI, text fields, a divider automatically. For example, the divider thing, the divider is actually a class in Swift
Mm-hmm.
UI, whereas in UI Kit, you got to do a view and then constrain it so that it's small and then
Yeah.
take then like stuff like that. You get for free and it's way easier in Swift UI. So I think the future is with Swift UI. I think definitely once it gets mature, it has to grow it right now. It's still a bit. It's like it's a toddler right now. So when it gets older, and every time I hop online, I see something new they added to it that makes it more granular. But I think that is the future, and it's cross-platform. That's another thing too that I like, and it has preview. Like I don't think UI, like even when I go back to UI Kit, I'm like, okay, I can't see the change that it's made.
Mm-hmm.
Like I gotta quit, rebuild. Now my computer is slow as hell, so I gotta wait till it builds, and then that whole process is like time consuming. Swift UI, I feel like takes time.
Yeah, like Michaela says, Swift UI as a Tyler is so accurate. Like I agree. Like for example, I was building one of the projects that I was streaming, and like again, like search functionality. Like ironically enough, I'm working on search with my team,
Hmm?
and like I don't know when I started doing iOS, I have like a special love or like a search functionality has a special place in my heart. I don't know what it is, but like they added searchable, and searchable works really well, like for simple stuff. But like if you just need to search stuff on your app, like either you have to make a network request or you have to do like some other stuff, It works perfectly. However, if we look at modern mobile apps as they are right now, if we look at the search bar, like a lot of search bars, they are like very like custom made. Like that's one point.
Yes.
Another point is that like even if you use by default like out of the box like a search bar, it's rarely when you just tap and search. Normally they add some sort of like animations to search, or they add like different backgrounds and like different things that like products, like a lot of product managers or a lot of product teams, they don't want to see like a boring like out of the box search bar. So that's why um
They want to add the little twist to it. Yeah.
yeah, and also like certain events on your mobile app in your view has to be controlled by, like for example, like if we look at UI kit, there are a bunch of delegates that you can execute. Like for example, like you can listen to delegates for text field, and like listen when it finishes editing. You can listen to events when the search is actually being executed, and you can massage your data so much, you can control your data so much right there and then. And this is what I'm missing with Swift UI. I wish we had like view modifiers or like whatever tool they can come up with, so I have that control over it. For example, I need control to know when my user is not typing anymore. And at this point, I can't.
You're you're right. You're right. Yeah. They need to add that then. Yeah. Via like a view modifier or something like that, or like a yeah the, or like a how would you do that? Yeah. On focus or no. No. Yeah, they need to add that. Actually, yeah, you're right. And this is part of the problem though with it. It's people. When I was taking a course on Udemy when I first started to learn Swift UI, the instructor just said it. He was like, you can. The reason why it's not ready for the mainstream right now is just because you can tell like when someone has made a Swift UI app. That's how cookie cutter it is. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? How can you tell? But then I started building. I'm like, yeah, you can tell because it all looks the same because you can't customize too many objects. It looks the same. It's like using Bootstrap for web, right?
Yeah.
You get those custom, you get those components that come out. You can change the color, of course, but the things look the same. You can tell when someone uses Bootstrap, the CES framework, and as you can tell when someone uses Swift UI, it's the same thing.
But at the same time, Swift UI really helps to expedite development with like complex animations, for example, like Geometry Reader. Like you can work
Yes.
wonders. This is where I'm so conflicted. Like
Mhm.
definitely I want to work with Swift UI, and like for our app that, or like for the app that I'm working with, like I'm looking at it like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that can be simplified with Swift UI just like that, UI related. But also like things like, I don't know, like compositional view layout with like collection view, like when you want to do like an interesting layout, you it's it's doable with Swift UI, but you have to do so much extra work. The same thing with like searching functionality. Like, yes, I can build a custom search bar and it will work perfectly. But the amount of code that I have to write to make it work,
Yeah.
granted, it's easy code. Like it's not like Swift UI where, oh, I'm sorry, UI kit when I'm trying to figure out how it works or how to make it work. It's easy, but like it's a lot of easy steps, like adding all like together. And granted, like every time there's a new iteration of Swift UI after each WWDC, I'm slightly nervous. So now like I know how to do X, Y, and Z. What they change, like are they gonna change it that I have to relearn like majority of my stuff that I know how to do and like what works really well. So like that kind of stuff. Like I like
Yeah.
the how easy it is to implement complex UI, but like for trivial stuff, like for example model presentation. Yeah, I mean I guess
Mhm.
they improve model presentation like by now, but also like iOS 15 great, but a lot of companies like they support like minimum iOS 13, and iOS 13 Swift
Minimum.
UI is like it's kind of shitty. So like I mean it's a great product, it's an MVP, like great thing, but like I wouldn't put like the first iteration of Swift UI in my production app. I will put Swift UI for iOS 15 by all means. Like
Oh yeah,
it's
for
it's
sure.
it's kind of ready, but I agree with you. I need more control, and I need more control, and I need more parity with UI kit because I know how to do stuff with UI kit, and like there are ways. There's not always like exactly the same like parity with Swift UI. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, and Apple is like giving like honestly mixed signals as well as to on what the framework they actually want to have as their premiere, right? So they came up with a new button system for UI kit. I'm like that's good. Like I like the button system for UI kit. I use it now, but I'm like I thought I Swift UI was the new kid on the block now that you putting your your resources into kind of like getting this off the ground. So I feel like we're gonna enter a place in iOS development where is UI kit in Swift UI. You just gotta pick instead of Swift UI being the evolution of UI kit. With like Objective C in like Swift, it's like Swift was the we're going to Swift. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah,
feel like UI kit and Swift UI is like I feel like they're just choose which one you want to use because we're supporting clearly UI kit still and adding to UI kit as well as Swift UI.
yeah. So, I think Michaela is going to head out. Like, we
Right,
appreciate
Michaela?
having you, like, on my channel. Like, yeah, thank you for dropping by. So, for new folks who are trying, like, thinking about like learning iOS development, what would you be your advice? Like, so what how they can start and like what they can expect when they can land their first job and how to do that.
Yeah. So, obviously, I don't think I'm saying anything that, especially if they, go to talks like this a lot, that I don't think I'm saying anything new or inspirational, but build just dive in, honestly. Dive in, build projects. That's the best way, right? And, I know it's hard me saying this, but don't get stuck in tutorial hell either. Like that's a place that I was in for a long time, thinking I was making accomplishments. I would do a whole bunch of tutorials, but obviously, tutorials is just you following a leader, right? Basically, it's like I equate tutorials to tracing, right? You're not drawing, you're tracing.
Hmm.
Those are two different things, right? To be an artist, you actually have to draw, not trace. So that's what I equate building to. Building is like you actually drawing, and that's going to help you way more than you actually following a tutorial. Yes, you might at the end of the day the tutorial have a full Twitter clone, but could you build that Twitter clone without tracing it? That's the real, I think, kind of like gauge of your ability and whether you're ready to apply for a job. And obviously, there's some basics that you guys can, would have to do before applying for a job. But I think that you would get those basics by building any of the, the starter apps, right? So
Hmm.
being familiar with UI kit, what I'm saying, being familiar with storyboarding, programmatic UI, Arc, um, data persistence, table views, collection views, knowing the difference between them, when to use which one, optional unwrapping, like the basic stuff that every iOS engineer should know, at least the basics. You can get into more complicated topics and stuff like that, but just the basics, and then just feeling comfortable launching an app. And I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I still get admin errors from Xcode. I still don't know how to Xcode just active sometimes, and sometimes I just X out of it. Like my manager can like dive into X code and figure out what's missing. I'm like, I'm still not that level right now. I just code.
Hmm.
But this a bunch of stuff that they can learn, but definitely build. Get your hands dirty. Build projects, no matter how simple they are. I don't. This doesn't matter. It can be just something as far as the consuming the API and displaying the data results on the screen in the view controller. Start off with that. Doing that and getting that down pat, because let's get real, like that's what you'll be doing most of the time in iOS, consuming APIs and displaying it to the user. That's why people say a lot of iOS development is front end heavy based.
Hmm.
I can't argue with that. But yeah, so let's get started and have confident join communities for support. That's going to help a lot with imposter syndrome and feelings of self doubt and you can't do it because someone else is built like a neural network and you can't even build a table view and a list. Um, be a part of the community and get on Twitter. That's what I tell you, when get on Twitter and get on tech Twitter, it's definitely help. I've met so many people that are willing and more than willing to help. They'll actually reach out to you, like, "Hey, you need some help? Like, I'm here for you." Like, so definitely reach out to the community, and just have fun with it too. Just have fun. Like, I got into this because, building to me is fun. Saying that I built this thing from scratch, that it is like my work, is fun for me and it's rewarding for me. So if you have the kind of mindset, stick with that mindset. Don't compare yourself to what X Y developer is doing or what someone who's better than you is doing. Move at your own pace. We all have our own pace. Stay in your lane and just focus on you. That's the best advice I can say.
Yeah, like that's amazing. But hey, I think we are about to wrap up. We were streaming for 51 minutes. So like, and we had a great discussion. So we had a great group of people. So definitely like share some love, like the video, share the video, subscribe to my channel, like all that good stuff. So if people want to find you, how they can find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can reach out to me on my Twitter account. It's C Freeman. So C3 Freeman. So it's CE the number three Freeman Freeman.
Okay, perfect. Well, Clyde, thank you so much for joining me for my live stream. It was absolute fire. Like, I really like having you on the show.
Thank you
Um,
for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And I hope I will catch up with you on Twitter.
For sure, for sure. Again, thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having me, Eugene. Hope to be here again, obviously. For any other topics you got.
Yeah, we should plan a specific topic and like do another live stream. Like, I don't know, like I'm thinking like Clyde and I we were talking about like job search and like the whole interviewing process, which we didn't cover today. And like we both had a lot to say, but like oh, like I guess we have to go live now. But like we can definitely touch on that. But the sky is the limit. So like now I have StreamYard, I have my YouTube channel, and like I you are always welcome on my YouTube channel.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you all. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.
Bye.